From the American Experience Storybook, Susan B. Anthony, Part 2. The stilted style of Susan's letters is most amusing. A few extracts will illustrate. I regret that brothers and sisters have not the privilege of attending a school better adapted to their improvements, both in science and morality. Surely a district school, unless they have recently reformed, is not an appropriate place for the cultivation of the latter, although in the former they may make some partial progress. Deborah has not determined to relinquish this school, although she has not yet ascertained whether the income from it will be equal to the expenditures. But if it should continue, I shall have a wish for Hannah and Mary to attend, as I think another one cannot be named so agreeable on all accounts as is Deborah Molson's at Hamilton. One may imagine that Susan got several credit marks when her teacher corrected this on the slate. The lecturer on philosophy and science came up from Philadelphia, and Susan tells her parents that he is quite an interesting man, and that his lecture on philosophy was far more entertaining than I had dared to anticipate. Of the science lecture, she says, he had a microscope through which we had the pleasure of viewing the dust from the wings of a butterfly, each minute particle of which appeared as large as a common fly. He mentioned several very interesting circumstances, but I must defer particularizing them until I can have the privilege of verbally communicating them to my dear friends at Battenville. Gilma joins with me in wishing love distributed to all. Again she writes, Beloved parents, the seventh day of my short stay in Hamilton arrives and finds me scarcely capable of informing you how the intervening moments have been employed, but I hope they have not passed without some improvement. Indeed, we should all improve perceptibly too, were we to attend to the instructions which are here given, for the advancements both of moral and literary pursuits. May I improve in both, but it is far easier for us to perceive where others should reform than to observe and correct our own imperfections, while perhaps our failings are completely disgusting in the sight of others. I find it very difficult leaving off old habits so as to have a vacuum for the formation of those which are new and more advantageous. My letter will be short this week, and I can assign no other cause than that my ideas do not freely flow. The difference in weather is quite material between this and our northern clime. Snow commenced falling about 12 o'clock today and continued till evening. But, Father, it was not such a storm as one which we traveled during the second day of our journey to the beautiful and sequestered shades of Hamilton. The cause of my neglecting to write last week was not the absence of this mind from home, but that it is obliged to occupy every moment in studies. A fire in Philadelphia gives her an opportunity for this bit of description. I was requested 5-day evening last, about 7 o'clock, by one of the scholars to step out and view the aurora borealis, which she said was extremely brilliant and beautiful. When there, I looked toward the north, but discovered no light, but there to the zenith, which was indeed very magnificent. But, said I, that does not look like the aurora. It is more like the light from a fire. And upon investigation we found it so to be. The light appeared in the east. We walked in that direction, when we beheld the flames bursting forth in stupendous grandeur. Not a bell was heard, all was calm, with the exception of the minds of some of the scholars whose parents resided in the city. The scene, indeed, would have been to the eye extremely pleasing were it not for the reflection that some of our fellow beings were about being deprived of a home, and perhaps lives also. We learned a few minutes after witnessing this phenomena that the fire was occasioned by the conflagration of a large board-yard near Market Street Bridge. After many affectionate messages, she says, I have not had but one real homesick fit that was 1 week from the night Father left us. I felt then as if I were taking leave of him again. In fact, the tears have come into my eyes as I write this last sentence. But do not suppose I carry a gloomy countenance all the time. Far be it from that, yet oft I think seriously of home and the endearing ties which bind us together. Father, we will look at the sentiments and not the orthography and grammar of the letters, in which I did discover some errors. She frequently admits that her sister admonishes her, Susan, thee write too much. Thee should learn to be concise. But she delights in letter writing and says, most of the girls are taking a walk this first day afternoon, but I did not feel like enjoying myself by accompanying them as well as in holding sweet communion, in writing with those inestimable friends I so dearly love, and arranging those thoughts in a manner of congenial to our feelings. The query naturally arises, at least to the thoughtful mind, how has our time since the last annual revolution of the earth been employed? Have our minds become improved from passing occurrences, or do they remain in the dormant-like state which so often degrades the human soul? She comes down from her lofty heights far enough to add, it would have afforded us the greatest pleasure imaginable to have dined on that goose in company with you on New Year's Day. It is Susan's diary, however, which affords the most satisfactory glimpse of her true character, serious, devotional, deeply conscientious, and strong in affection. 5 weeks have been spent in Hamilton, and to what purpose? Has my mind advanced either in virtue or literature? I fear that every moment has not been profitably spent. Oh, may this careless mind be more watchful in the future. Oh, may the many warnings which we every day receive tend to make me more attentive to what is right. We were cautioned by our dear teacher today to beware of self-esteem and of signs that would indicate an untruth. We are referred to the condition of Ananias and Sapphira, who intended to deceive the apostle. Would that I were wholly free from the same evil spirit which tempted those persons in ancient times. The spirit of truth must have dominion in the mind in order to attain a state of happiness. Resolves and resolves fill up my time. I resolve at night to do better on the morrow, and when the morrow comes and I mingle with my companions, all the resolutions are obliterated. In the afternoon of seventh day, Deborah accompanied the scholars to town and visited the Academy of Arts and Sciences. Beautiful indeed was the sight. Nature, how bounteous and varied are thy works! On beholding the splendid scene, I was ready to exclaim, O miracle of miracles, with the celebrated naturalist when speaking of the metamorphoses of insects. Second month, 15th day. This day I call myself 18. It seems impossible that I can be so old, and even at this age I find myself possessed of no more knowledge than I ought to have had at 12. Dr. Allen, a phrenologist, gave us a short lecture this morning and examined a few heads, mine among them. He described only the good organs and said nothing of the bad. I should like to know the whole truth. Susan relates with a good deal of satisfaction that she has written a letter to a schoolmate at home without putting it on the slate for the teacher to see. A few days later, Deborah sends for her. She went down with cheerfulness. But what was her astonishment to see Deborah with the intercepted letter open in her hand. Susan closes her account of the interview by saying, little did I think when I was writing that letter that I was committing such an enormous crime. Well, that's the end of the Susan B. Anthony account. I hope you come back for our next video, and I hope you CC Challenge students are finding these useful. I love you guys. As Tigger says, ta-ta for now.